York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman is resigning amid a report alleging he physically and emotionally abused former romantic partners. 4 women spoke with The New Yorker about what they described as Schneiderman's non-consensual physical violence toward them. Hours after the report was released, Schneiderman announced his resignation. He denies assaulting anyone. Schneiderman has gained national attention as a public champion of women in the wake of the Me Too movement and was one of the first to take action against Harvey Weinstein. Rikki Klieman is following the story.
The Manhattan District Attorney's Office says it has opened an investigation into the allegations against Schneiderman. The New Yorker spoke to 4 women, 2 who gave their names. And what the women allege is in direct contradiction to the causes Schneiderman has spent more than a decade supporting.
A woman does not have the right to control her own body. She is not truly equal.
New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman built his career as a liberal progressive who stood up for women's rights. But on Monday, in a New Yorker report, the 63-year-old was described as a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde who was physically and emotionally abusive in private toward 4 women. Among them, Michelle Manning Barish, who told The New Yorker she began a romantic relationship with Schneiderman in 2013 that quickly turned violent. She claimed he was a heavy drinker and described one instance where he allegedly called her a whore and forcibly slapped her directly on her ear. He then allegedly used his body weight to hold her down and began to choke her.
We've begun a long overdue reckoning with our culture of violence and silence.
Tanya Selvaretnam said she met Schneiderman in 2016 and described her relationship with him as a fairy tale that became a nightmare. Selvaretnam, who was born in Sri Lanka, said Schneiderman started calling her his brown slave and would sometimes tell her to call him master. She alleged he would frequently slap her across the face, choke her, and spit on her. It wasn't consensual, she said. This wasn't sexual play acting. Schneiderman denies the abuse allegations, saying in a statement, "In the privacy of intimate relationships, I have engaged in role-playing and other consensual sexual activity."
The federal government has been taken over by anti-choice, anti-women extremists.
In recent years, Schneiderman has raised his profile by taking on President Trump. He has also been at the forefront of the Me Too movement, filing a civil rights lawsuit against Harvey Weinstein and his company.
This report is a major bombshell.
CBS News legal analyst Rikki Klieman said the Weinstein investigation likely won't be affected by Schneiderman stepping down.
That case stands on its own. However, if any of these allegations against Eric Schneiderman are true, the hypocrisy is beyond belief.
In a statement, Selvaretnam confirmed her account in The New Yorker. Manning Barish did not respond to our request for comment. Schneiderman praised The New Yorker last month when it won a Pulitzer Prize in part for its Weinstein coverage. He tweeted that without the brave women and men who spoke up about the sexual harassment they endured at the hands of powerful men, there would not be the critical national reckoning underway. And Tanya, the New York State Legislature will vote on a new Attorney General to serve through the start of the new term on January 1st.
Rikki Klieman, thank you. And let's hear more from CBS News legal analyst Rikki Klieman. Rikki, thanks for being with us. Manhattan's district attorney has opened an investigation into these allegations against Schneiderman. What charges could he face?
Ultimately, what it really looks like here is misdemeanor assault. And the reason we're not looking at felony assault, unless facts come out in the investigation, is because to get from misdemeanor assault to felony assault, you really need a weapon, or you need someone in a protected class, like a child or an elderly or a disabled person, or you need a serious injury that is at the level of impairment. And that we don't yet know that we have here. If we don't, misdemeanor assault 1 year and a 1-year statute of limitations, so it can only go back 1 year.
But the women did say they had to seek medical attention, is that right? If there are records of those doctor's visits or whatever medical attention they received, would that
It depends how serious the injury is.
Okay.
And that will be a decision that both the victim and the district attorney will make. Are there medical records? What does it show? Are there lasting effects? One of them was slapped so hard across the ear. Do we still have ringing in the ears? Are there things that are lasting that are physical, not just emotional?
Now, we know that, last year alone, Schneiderman's office took legal action against the Trump administration dozens of times. So does this resignation impact those investigations?
I would think that his resignation does not impact those investigations in any way whatsoever, and there are reasons for this. When the Attorney General makes an announcement that he is going forward with some kind of investigation that remains in progress, it's the assistant attorney generals who are really what we call the line assistants, L-I-N-E, that the line assistants are the ones who go forward. These investigations will not stop today when Eric Schneiderman's resignation is effective. They will continue on. In addition, you are going to have someone who is appointed to follow in Eric Schneiderman's role, and they will remain in that role as the Attorney General until the election, which will take place in January of next year. Who appoints them? You go to the state legislature. So the entire state legislature gets to have a vote as to who should be what we'll call the interim. That person is not going to unwind these investigations.
Right. All right. So do we have any idea on who Schneiderman's replacement could be?
Well, in terms of the interim, the question is who is willing to be tasked at this time. Is it someone who actually belongs to the state legislature, meaning someone who says, I would really like to do this, I'm an attorney, I have the background, I could qualify, and really has a desire to do it? Or is it someone that they look further out? The ultimate question here is not going to be what happens between May and January in the office. It's going to be who gets elected when it comes time to January. So one of the names that was floated in the papers, which may have no reality, so I want to be clear about that, because it was just floated, and we're within 12 to 14 hours of all of this happening, but is Preet Bharara. Preet Bharara was the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Another name that's gone out there is Carl Hastie, who is, of course, with the legislature. But the truth is, you may have a great number of people who look at the Office of Attorney General in New York as a really terrific stepping stone to higher office, such as governor. The question is, can someone get a campaign together within this shorter period of time? And lest we forget, there is a Republican candidate.
Right. Now, Rikki, how much of a bombshell was this to the New York legal community?
I think that bombshell may actually be too little a word. I think shock. Many of us have respected, known Eric Schneiderman. He is a champion of women since he was a teenager. He's the person of all ironies who, as a state senator, introduced the choking strangulation bill. And then he becomes AG when the bill goes into full force and effect. And what is he doing, allegedly, in his private life? He is choking, strangling his domestic partners. This is really something that is unfathomable and dramatically disappointing. The highest-ranking legal officer of the state of New York, who had such a stellar reputation, particularly for the Democrats, and now he is dashed. Saying it was consensual role play, by the way, which is what he has said, still leaves you with this thought, or leaves me with this thought. I won't project it to someone else. If you are a public official, you're single, you're divorced, you have the ability to date whom you want, you have long-term relationships. If you are engaging in what would be considered by many aberrant behavior, don't you ever realize how reckless that is, that if that relationship breaks up, that privacy of what you say was consensual, that these women say was non-consensual, absolutely an act of violence? Don't you have some corner of your mind that tells you that this could become public?
They are stunning allegations that are hard to fathom. Rikki Klieman, thank you so much.
Always thank you, Tanya.